Hey everybody, welcome in to the Live and Learn podcast. We're doing well on this Thursday, February the 13th, a snowy day here in New Brunswick. But we're live tonight with lots to talk about, lots to dissect. And in a little bit, I will eat crow because I was wrong about something. And I don't shy away from admitting something when I'm wrong in life or on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. But throughout today, we're going to talk about the NHL at kind of the three-quarter mark, if you will, where teams are, surprises, really good stories, where teams go down the stretch. Because after the Four Nations, there's about 2 weeks, and then it's the trade deadline. It's that quick. And then it's about a month and a half left of the regular season. NHL regular season goes until something like the 23rd of April. Really, too late. Way too late. I love hockey, but playing into late June, to me, not the smartest decision. I could be wrong, but on this one, I don't think I am. But I've been wrong before. But yeah, the last game, is April 17th. That's still really late. That's still late. It's later than the NBA season. But April, so a month and a half after the trade deadline before we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the race is on for sure, and we're going to talk about the game last night. We're going to talk NHL. We're going to preview USA and Finland tonight. Second game of the Four Nations, still in La Belle Province, as you can see behind me. That is Montreal, the square outside of the arena. Montreal, I've said this, Centre Bell, in my opinion, the best game, the best arena in Canada for sure. Of the games I've been to, the best location to go watch a sporting event is in the Bell Center. It's crazy, great atmosphere. Whether you like the Canadians, kind of irrelevant. I've seen Canada playing the gold medal game in Montreal, and it was a phenomenal atmosphere. So we'll talk USA, Finland. We're going to talk about some UFC picks for this upcoming weekend, courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. So we're going to do that later on in the program. We're going to get some baseball signing news. But let's start off the show with me eating crow. If there was anybody that was a bigger skeptic of the Four Nations face-off than me, then I applaud them. Because I love a take. You give a take and you want to sit on it, but be proud of that take. And I didn't think that this Four Nations was going to be all that compelling. I didn't know if the hockey was going to be very good, but I was wrong. Canada-Sweden last night was phenomenal. Seeing best on best for the first time outside of a World Junior or a World Hockey Championships since 2016 was unique, was special. And quite honestly, it exceeded any expectations that I possibly could have had. Credit to the two teams, credit to the tournament organizers. I was wrong, no doubt about it. A better product than I could have even imagined at its best. I didn't think it could be this. At its ultimate best. But it delivered. The hockey was fantastic. The pace was phenomenal. They took 25 minutes to drop the puck, and that pissed me off. But other than that, it was a perfect night. If you're a fan of Canada, you're stoked. If you're a fan of the sport, you're stoked. You like Sweden? You took Canada to overtime. That's a win, in my humble opinion. But just the overall product was great. I think Craig Simpson called the game, so obviously you have to have some withdrawals there. Can't all be fantastic because Craig Simpson sucks. But other than that, great. Awesome. Seeing McDavid, Crosby, Doughty, McKinnon, Makar, Braden Point, all on the same team, on the same ice at the same time. Incredibly unique, incredibly special. And as I mentioned, in that arena that is just phenomenal for anything sports. Anything sports related, the Bell Center rocks. It delivers. Looking at the game overall, it's hard to say anything definitive. You can look at certain lines and go, they weren't a great fit. And I certainly thought that at times last night. But I think it's also important to realize that it was one game. And these things take time. You need to let them develop. But my big takeaway from the first game is that Sidney Crosby has been in the back seat for the last number of years because he's played on a team full of players that, quite frankly, aren't on his level, and he's been on a team that's been irrelevant. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not competitive. And they have a GM who used to be the GM of the Maple Leafs, which makes them somewhat interesting, but that's really only coming from a Toronto fan base who kind of hopes Kyle Dubas fails in Pittsburgh, which to this point he has. But Pittsburgh is a dumpster fire. They're the AARP Penguins. They're not doing anything. I hate the way that they built their team. I hate that Crosby wants to stay the rest of his career there. I respect it, but again, doesn't change a career if you move to a different organization. I've said this. Do we think less of Ray Bourque? No. I think of him as a champion. Do we think less of Joe Sakic? No. Do we think less of Corey Perry, who's going to be a Hall of Famer? No. Well, some people might, but they like to lose, so you don't have them on your team. But that's his decision. But what we saw last night was a guy play with one of his best friends that have incredible chemistry, and you put on a line with them a Swiss Army knife named Mark Stone, who just does everything fairly well. His game is simple, but he's in the right location. He makes the right play. And more often than not, that's going to be a winning formula for you. But Sidney Crosby did what he does. Condensed ice, making plays available. And that Canada power play didn't get many chances. But in that first minute, Crosby over to McKinnon from McDavid, that was magic. The three best players, the three best forwards of a generation on the same ice at the same time, scoring a goal together. It doesn't get any better than that. This is Sid's Stanley Cup. This Four Nations, next year's Olympic Games, it's the final stop. It's the final coronation of his career. The last time, if he chooses to remain in Pittsburgh, in all likelihood, he'll play with really good players, that he'll play on a team that's a favorite to win. And it's awesome to see. You could make a strong argument he was Canada's best player last night. He finished the game with 3 assists. He made good plays defensively. And that McKinnon, Stone, Crosby line was the best line of either team. If you only watch the first period, you might say, oh, God, that pregame ritual, the puck drop took 25 bleeping minutes. I got to get to bed. School night. You go, oh, Sweden had 2 shots. They didn't get a shot until 5 minutes left in the first. That's going to be a blowout. Didn't go that way. Credit to Sweden. I thought they were the better team in the second and the third period. They made really smart plays. They made it difficult for Canada to get momentum, to get high-quality scoring chances. And I think you saw some good performances. Rasmus Dahlin was really good to me last night. Played a lot, was in big moments, mixed it up. Loves to use that stick to his advantage. Love that. But he seemed to be in a good spot every time he was on. I thought he only didn't play that much. I thought he should have played more, personally. But their team, they made things happen. No forward played that many minutes. If you look, Eriksson X 17, Kempe 16, Raymond 17, Hedman played 27 minutes. Erik Karlsson played 18 too many. Ekholm played 19:30, Bratt a forward 17:01, Raquel played 19:31. Most by a forward not named Bill Nylander. They just have a balanced team full of some pretty good guys. They checked. They defended well. Philip Gustafsson made some big saves when he had to. And I think you saw some breakdowns. Jordan Binnington, that second goal, that was a muffin that can't go in. Brutal goal. But in the end, it works out for Canada because Canada doesn't win the game in overtime if Binnington doesn't make 2 incredible saves. It doesn't work out for Canada if the refs call it too many men on the ice. That was too many men, but they didn't call it. And I'd be pissed if I was Sweden. But they put their whistles away, which I'm fine with. I like that. And ultimately, every Leaf fan knows that number 16 is likely the most clutch player in the league. Every Leaf fan knows this. Every Leaf fan, I think, is well aware and accepts this as gospel. And that's that Mitch Marner just delivers. And I am being a tad facetious, but Mitch Marner rips home the OT winner to give Canada the 2 points to open the Four Nations. And why I say it's funny, because I didn't think Binnington was great. I don't think the McDavid-Marner line was very good at all, 5-on-5. They didn't have an instant chemistry. I thought they overpassed. They need to be more aggressive, shoot the puck, create scoring opportunities. But in the end, Marner gets the overtime winner, gets that validation in the Bell Center, the home of the Canadians, who the fans don't like him there, but yet they were cheering for him last night. Bottom end guys, Hagel was great. Hagel was great for Canada. John Cooper's his coach, which, some of the narrative was, oh, Hagel's on the team uh, because, because he's his coach. And you look, the fourth line was on the ice for 2 goals, but that's why plus minus is so garbage. Those guys are all -2. And if you look at it, John Cooper relied on Josh Morrissey, played a ton, played 23 minutes. Makar played 28, and he was great. I thought he was all over the ice. He didn't finish with a point, but I thought he had a really good game. Smart coming down. Parayko played almost 23. Doughty played 19, fewest of any defenseman. Devon Taves played 26. I thought he was great too. Him and Cale Makar. It takes time, but it's a short tournament. What I think you can say for Canada is they escaped with one. It's not that they were thoroughly outplayed, because they weren't. But you have a 3-1 lead and you almost blow it. You're thankful to come out with the 2 points. And you're thankful to have those 2 points going into, on paper, your toughest matchup against the Americans on Saturday night. The heavyweight showdown. Marner versus Matthews. You got Jack Hughes, who's on, we'll talk about the U.S. roster in just a minute. For Canada, they did get a tough break. Shea Theodore is out of the tournament. Looked like a shoulder injury. The Vegas Golden Knights are saying he is week to week at this point. So he'll unlikely be ready for them when the NHL season resumes. So a tough blow for Canada and for Vegas, obviously. He's such an important part of their team alongside Alex Pietrangelo, who, oddly enough, is not playing in this tournament to avoid, an injury, to avoid lingering ailments. And his teammate ultimately goes down with one. So what this means is Travis Sanheim, who was a healthy scratch last night, he will now join the lineup, make 6 defensemen. So you could see him playing possibly with Doughty on that final pair, just with the other established guys. So Doughty and Sanheim, they'll only add another defenseman if there is another injury. If something terrible happens, then they can add another guy, but they won't unless another injury forces them to do so. But the pace I was so impressed with the pace. I was so impressed with the compete and how much they wanted it. You see the celebration after the game. And I think you saw some really good players, have human moments. On that Brad Marchand goal, Victor Hedman gets blown by Seth Jarvis, which sets up that play for the tap-in for Marchand. And it was just it was an incredible play. Philip Forsberg turned the puck over, it goes the other way, and Braden Point finds Brad Marchand for the empty net goal. You see Binnington let in a stinker, and you go, that doesn't look like a Canadian goaltender. Roberto Luongo wouldn't have happened to him. But credit to Binnington, he settled in, made some big saves. If I'm Canada, I roll with him on Saturday. He didn't lose the game. It's a short tournament. It's 4 games maximum. So give him a look. See what he can do again. He's your guy. You named him the game one starter for a reason. If he goes against the Americans and you win, you'll have 5 points. You're basically guaranteed to go to the final game. And Canada's last game is against Finland, which on paper is the weakest team in the four nations. So you take care of business against the two best teams. You have Finland Monday afternoon, then you get ready for Thursday night for the final game for the trophy. And they created a trophy, and it looks phenomenal, by the way. So I'm happy about that. I don't think Sweden's a pushover. I'll say that. They got Finland on Saturday afternoon, then finish with the Americans. I think they can play with them. They need to work hard. They need to have good structure, things to go their way. But they're not a pushover team. They got help from Jonas Brodin scored a goal for them. Here's my beef with Sweden. It's best on best, but you have to have certain veterans on your team because they've been there before. And that's sentimental, and I love that. No, I don't. It's crap. And I hate to do this. He's such a likable guy, and he's one of my favorite players, but Erik Karlsson playing and Rasmus Andersson not playing. I mean, I love stupidity as much as the next guy. I mean, nobody's a bigger Trudeau supporter than me, but there's no way in hell, in heaven, in whatever you believe in, that Erik Karlsson should be playing over Rasmus Andersson. No way. He's in the lineup playing because he's Erik Karlsson and he's a veteran, and you got to have him in there. Which you don't, but they have him in there. Rasmus Andersson would have helped them more. Erik Karlsson, he's not a great player anymore. It's just the truth. Be nice if he was. He isn't. So Sweden, they won't change the lineup. They'll scratch somebody else. But if there's one defenseman coming out of that lineup for the second game, Brodin not coming out. Not to me anyway. Hedman, yeah, no. Karlsson, yes. Ekholm, no. I thought Ekholm was awesome. He played 19 minutes, but he was awesome. Let's see. Dahlin, no. But it'll be Dahlin over everybody else. Forsling, no chance. He played 25 minutes. For Sweden, one guy who I didn't think played well, old Bill Nylander. Old Bill. He wanted to score a goal, had his chances. Hanging out by the red line, hanging out looking for a break. He wasn't that good they need more out of him, more consistent, stop cheating, care more in your own zone if you're going to win this thing. I thought he was junk for Sweden. But what can you do? Not every Leaf can have a great game on the same night. Marner, Nylander make one. But I think if anything, it proved, Marner is better than Nylander. I mean, there's no debate there, really. I don't think anybody would push back on that. Well, maybe my dad, but I had to, I don't like to pick on the elderly. But sometimes you just gotta tell them when they're wrong, And last night's goal helped my case. I'll tell you that. Tonight, Finland and the United States. No Quinn Hughes for the Americans. Jake Sanderson in. He'll be the seventh defenseman, but he's the replacement for Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes banged up before the Four Nations break. He's going to sit out, hoping to be ready for when the Canucks return. Tough decision, obviously, but I get it. He's the captain. He's the face. He is the Vancouver Canucks. I have all the respect in the world for his decision. Americans, they're good. They're good. Practice lines. Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, Jake Gensel, Jack Hughes. Jesus. JT Miller, Matthew Boldy, my guy from Minnesota, and Brady Tkachuk. And then you got Brock Nelson, Vinny Trocheck, and Dylan Larkin on the fourth line. With Jacob Slavin and Adam Fox, Zach Werenski and Charlie McAvoy, and Noah Hannafin and Brock Faber, another one of my guys. It's a hell of a team. You also have Connor Hellebuck in net, which is not too shabby. At close, Canada had the best odds to win the Four Nations. But it was plus 145, plus 155, something like that. Very close. I think if you add in goaltending and you look at the back end, the U.S. has a better team than Canada. That doesn't mean they're going to win. But I think they have a better roster, top to bottom, than Canada. Now, Canada with McKinnon, McDavid, Crosby, you might go, we have three players that are better than anybody on the American team, which isn't that far. I mean, Matthews, I'm sure some would put over Crosby at this point, but that's not a crazy statement to say Canada's got the three best players of anybody on these teams. True. Also, Connor Hellebuck has been horrible in big games. Also true. Hasn't been good in the playoffs for the Jets. Was awful last year. So there's some worries there over what he's going to do, how he's going to play, what's his outlook going to be. Now, they do have Swayman and they do have Jake Ottinger waiting in the wings. So you have some good guys that can come in and play if Hellebuck falters, pardon me. But imagine Quinn Hughes was on that defense corps. Werenski, Faber, Fox, Slavin, McAvoy, and Quinn Hughes. That's unfair. It's a murderer's row. Then you have Noah Hannafin as your extra. That's a murderer's row, and they have a good defense now. I like their lines. I like the way they built them. I think you have a mix of everything on each line. Eichel, great passer, great creator. You have Kyle Connor, who's there with him. You have Matthew Tkachuk, who's got some snarl, who's not afraid to mix it up, will throw some hits. Told the media that we got 4 Game 7s in this event. He said it's great for him being a Florida Panther, gearing up for the playoffs when he comes back, because he said he's played so much hockey over the last couple of years. True. Back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. Gensel, Matthews, Jack Hughes. Gensel's he finds open space, is a great goal scorer. Jack Hughes, great creator, excellent skater. And Matthews is a machine when healthy. And he's healthy right now. JT Miller, Matthew Boldy, Brady Tkachuk. That's a heavy line. That's a heavy line that's not going to be fun to play against. I'll tell you that. And then Larkin, Trocheck, Nelson. It's fine. It's their weakest line. It's their fourth line, should be. But they still have some offensive punch, some guys that can make things happen for sure. I can't wait to see JT Miller play against Elias Pettersson in a couple days. That's on Monday night. That'll be fun. The Americans' big favorites against Finland, who Finland are missing some key players. A lot of injuries. No Miro Heiskanen, no Rasmus Ristolainen on their back end. You look, Nico Mikkola, Olli Mata, Earl Vakanainen, Välimäki, Joki Harju, Esa Lindell from the Dallas Stars. Not a lot of experience. No alpha dog on that defense core. Sasha Barkov is great. Sebastian Aho. Mikko Rantanen, but he's banged up coming into this tournament. Eric Halla, Anton Lundell, the newest Dallas Star, Michael Granlund, Rupe Hintz, who's awesome. It's a good team. It could definitely be better, and they do have UC Saros in net, which gives them a chance, but they are by far the worst team in the tournament. Top to bottom, skill-wise. Now, Finland is so good at playing a system. As a nation, they know who they are. They know going in that most of their opponents at the top level are going to be better than them. And I wouldn't rule them out because they've won crazy games. So they made the gold medal game at the World Juniors, and they didn't have a great team this year. Their nation was not loaded with talented kids, but yet they found a way. And they pushed the U.S. all the way to overtime. They nearly won the gold medal. So that's what they can do. They have belief. They can figure it out. But the Americans are favored by a goal and a half tonight on FanDuel. I think that's a safe bet. I do think they'll get the win. They're the better team. But the tournament's been fun. We'll do a podcast Sunday morning, recapping Canada-US game and Finland and Sweden on Saturday afternoon. So Saturday, 2 o'clock, Finland, Sweden, 9 o'clock, Canada, and the Americans. So we'll do a pod on Sunday morning recapping those games and what transpires coming out of them. But the Four Nations, fun, awesome product, great arena. Drop the puck sooner than when you said you were going to. It's my only complaint. If that's my only complaint, that's pretty good, I will say, for what they're trying to accomplish here. So kudos. With the Four Nations break, a lot of players are on vacation, getting a break during the middle of the season. And at this point, some teams play 54, 56, some 57, 58 games. It'll be the home stretch when they return, pedal to the metal, try to win Stanley Cup, try to make the playoffs. There's races, lots to be decided. My key storylines at this point, the lead one to me has to be the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg Jets lose in the first round in really embarrassing fashion to the Colorado Avalanche. Hellebuck was god-awful. They couldn't score goals. They couldn't defend. They were giving up 5.6 goals a game on average in that series, and it was never close. But then you see their head coach retire. Scott Arniel, you kind of go, oh, they're going to give Scott Arniel the job. He's assistant coach on that staff. Not going to be a quote-unquote leader of men, pushover. He gets the gig. They have the second best start in league history. And you look at them. 81 points, 39 wins. Both best in the NHL. Phenomenal. Mark Scheifele, third in the league in goals with 31. Kyle Connor right behind him, he has 30. Hellebuck, who easily could have had a bad season after an awful playoff, not to mention he won the Vezina Trophy last year. He's been awesome again. He's been the best goalie in the league. Continuing to be dominant, continuing to prove that he's one day going to be a Hockey Hall of Famer. That he will one day maybe even win a Stanley Cup. I view this Winnipeg Jets team as different as I have in years past. If they played Colorado tomorrow in a playoff series, I think they'd beat them. Doesn't mean they will, but I think they will. The goaltending, their structure, the depth scoring that they have this year with guys like Mason Appleton and Nito Niederreiter, and guys that are just contributing. Finding ways to be productive on that team. They're getting it. Neil Pionk, Josh Morrissey. We mentioned how he played a ton last night at the Four Nations. He's awesome. He's a number one defenseman, no doubt anymore. His game has gone to another level entirely. Could they use another defenseman by the end of the trade deadline? Absolutely. Absolutely, they could. And I think they will be shopping. They could always use another centerman, another depth forward. But I like their team. Nemestikov, been healthy, been productive. I mentioned Niederreiter. They just got a really good team that delivers. Gabe Vilardi, career year, going to score 30 goals. Going to get probably 65 to 70 points. Nick Ehlers has missed time, but he's over a point per game. Morrissey, been awesome. Pionk's been really good. Perfetti, having his best year so far. Adam Lowry, just a quiet, good captain, plays hard every night. I like their team. I didn't think they'd be this good. The fact that they are 9 points up in the Dallas Stars in February, that's a stunner. That's a surprise. Because the Dallas Stars are no joke. They're a very good team that can compete with anyone. And I'm not saying it's a cakewalk for Winnipeg to get deep into the playoffs, but I think they can. I think they can beat Colorado. I do think they can beat Dallas. I think they can go toe-to-toe with Vegas. Edmonton's always a tough out because of their talent, but hey, Winnipeg's a good team. They can battle with them. They can make it a dogfight. If Hellebuck is even a decent goaltender against, I'll take Hellebuck over Stuart Skinner any day of the week. So that's an awesome story. Washington Capitals. somehow made the playoffs last year, and I viewed them as the worst team in NHL history to make the playoffs because that roster was an abomination. It stunk. But they made the playoffs. They got swept by the New York Rangers. And they didn't really panic. Spencer Carberry, year one, make the playoffs with that team. What an accomplishment. They got Pierre-Luc Dubois from LA. And it was viewed as a trade that was, you raise an eyebrow and go, what's going on here? You're taking on Pierre-Luc Dubois. I didn't mind it for Darcy Kemper. And the trade for Jacob Chychrun, Ottawa gives up on him for a third rounder. They reacquire Lars Eller. But they keep the majority of their team. Oh, and they trade for Logan Thompson. That helped. They are first in the East, and they are dominant. It's a great story on multiple fronts. Alex Ovechkin is 16 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record, a record nobody thought would ever be broken. It was an untouchable thing. And yet the grade 8 at 39 years old, on the best team in the Eastern Conference, he broke his leg this year. And yet at the break, playing in 39 games, he scored 26 goals already. 43 points, over a point per game at 39. Dylan Strome has been Washington's best player, not named Logan Thompson. Swiss Army knife, power play, penalty kill if you need him, scores big goals. Alexei Protas, another European that you hadn't really heard of, 22 goals in 55 games, going to score 30 plus, quietly. Tommy Wilson, resurgence, 42 points in 55 games with 24 goals, should be on the Four Nations. Chychrun, 14 goals in 50 games, 35 points. He's been awesome. And Logan Thompson, who they just re-signed, who they got from Vegas because they couldn't keep everybody. 223 goals against, 921 save percentage, 2 shutouts, 24 wins, only 2 losses in regulation all year for Logan Thompson. Washington, 80 points in 55 games, 36 wins. And Spencer Carberry is the front runner for the Jack Adams. At least to me, the way I know it works, it's a lot about narrative, a lot about what sells, what works. If I go to the Jack Adams, Spencer Carberry, minus 650, heavy favorite at this point. Dean Evison in second at plus 430. John Hines, plus 1,800 in Minnesota. Martin St. Louis, plus, why is he that high? They fell off a cliff. Jim Hiller, plus 2,900 in LA. Then Scott Arniel, plus 4,000 in Winnipeg. I think Arniel should be second on that list. Carberry and Arniel should be 1, 2. St. Louis should be nowhere near the top. Okay, had a good 3-week stretch, and now they hit bottom and they suck. Way to go. But these two teams leading East and West, leading their divisions, playing dominant hockey for large portions of the season, stunners. Stunners. A story that, a negative one, it has to be the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers won the President's Trophy last year. They made the conference final, ultimately losing to the eventual champion in the Florida Panthers. They had a very talented roster, but they lose in 6 games to Florida, and then they have a weird offseason where they talk about Jacob Trouba and they're trying to move him, and it gets out to the media, but they're not able to trade him, and then he's there to start the year, and it's just odd. They have a contract impasse with Igor Shesterkin, which they eventually figure out. But of 21 guys that were on the President's Trophy team, 19 of them are pending free agents. Well, the Rangers are 27, 24, and 4 on the season. 58 points, 1 more than the Islanders, 2 more than the sad sack Penguins. They are currently 3 points out of a wildcard spot. They very well could still make the playoffs with the acquisition of JT Miller, and they still want to be aggressive. But they are 10 points back of New Jersey, 12 points back of Carolina, 22 points back of the Washington Capitals, a team they beat in the first round of the playoffs last year in 4 straight sweep games. It's a team that I don't think likes each other all that much. I think it's a management team that doesn't like the team all that much. Lightning Rod, Panarin, you love him and you hate him at the same time. More the latter for me. Adam Fox hasn't been great this year. Zibanejad, they hate him in New York. Trocheck's a good player, but he's signed for a long time and he's over 30. Lafreniere has dipped. I love Will Cooley. I think Will Cooley's one of their good young players. Riley Smith over the hill. Kreider over the hill. It's an older group with youngsters that just haven't really blossomed into stars yet. But to go from President's Trophy to outside of the playoff picture, 55 games into the next season, that's a stunner. That's something you don't see coming. And the New York Rangers are a team to watch for me come trade deadline, just like the Boston Bruins. What are you going to do? Are you hoping to make the playoffs one more time, to sell some gates, to sell some tickets for some games at MSG in the playoffs when they inevitably lose in the first round? Is that what's important? Or do you trade a guy like Ryan Lindgren, who's a pending UFA, who will be valued across the league because he's a really good defenseman, maybe would end up in Winnipeg, would look really good in a Jets uniform? Boston, do you trade Marchand? Do you trade some of these guys that we've talked about on the show? Or do you really want to try to make the playoffs because that's what they do in Boston, and that's what they do in New York? I think it's always stupid just to make the playoffs for the sake of making it with no plan after it on what it's going to accomplish or what it all means, quite frankly. But we'll see. 2 very interesting teams to me. Toronto Maple Leafs, always interesting. I think they had one of their best first 3 quarters of a season in a long time, in years. They're boring to watch, but they're winning games, so who cares? They're very much in the mix with the Florida Panthers at the top of the Atlantic Division. Joseph Woll hasn't missed a game since October. He's playing like a number 1 goalie. They need more depth scoring, certainly. But I like their defense more than Florida. I like them to beat Tampa at this point in a playoff series. They have a good team. Now, how far will that take them? Remains to be seen. Skepticism around the Maple Leaf organization always will be there, and rightly so. But if this team didn't at least make the second round, I'd be stunned. I think they will. I think they're good enough to do it. They should. They're better than the teams around them. They do need help on the wing. They need another player up front for some depth scoring. They'll probably get that. Oilers turnaround. He's great. That was great. Horrible start, just like last year, but now first in the Pacific. Overtook Vegas. 34-17-4. Leon Draisaitl leads the NHL in goals. Right up there in points. He's got 83 points in 55 games with 40 goals. He's been Hyman's turned it around. He's up to 19 on the year. Edmonton's really good again. They'll be there. They're going to win some series, win some games. Another one for me. Can Nathan MacKinnon win MVP 2 years in a row? It's going to be tough because voters don't like to do that. They get fatigued, and you don't want to give it to one guy. He's leading the NHL in points. He's got 87 right now, 4 more than Draisaitl. He's been everywhere. He leads the league in assists with 66, which is 9 more than Nikita Kucherov. To me, every night you watch him, you can make a case he's a better hockey player than Connor McDavid. I don't think it's a stretch. He's that good. I love watching Nathan. He skates like he wants to break the ice. Like he's got something against it. Like they just insulted his mother. That's his approach. So could he win back to? He very much should be in the conversation. Will they put Connor Hellebuck in that mix? Will they put a Zach Werenski in that mix? Could be an interesting year for the Hart Trophy. I think there's a lot of potential there. Could Columbus make the playoffs in the second half? Be an awesome story with obviously the horrible, tragic death of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. His father's been around Team USA, which I think has been phenomenal to see on the ice during practice. They have his jersey up in the stall in the arena at the Bell Center. So there's a lot of stories going into the second half. Lots of things to watch, things to touch on. According to insiders, it is unlikely there'll be trades made during this Four Nations tournament. GMs will be kind of staying put, maybe monitoring things. If I'm a GM, I don't care. If I can get a deal done, I'm going to make a deal. Yeah, it's the NHL's tournament. You don't want to overshadow it, but I mean, hell, Jay Glazer broke a story on the morning of the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl was on Fox, where Jay Glazer works, that Aaron Rodgers was going to be released by the New York Jets the morning of the Super Bowl. And that was confirmed today by the New York Jets when they put out a press release saying, we're going to move off from Aaron Rodgers after 18 games, 18 starts for Aaron as the Jets quarterback. Poor New York Jets fans. I do feel for them. They had so much hope with Aaron Rodgers that he was going to be good, come in and save. And I think he could have been if that Achilles tear was so horrible and it just sucked the life out of that season. This year was different. And maybe if Robert Saleh wasn't brought back, because I thought that was weird that he just came back and they didn't have any faith in him and it was so obvious. But Aaron will play again. I think Aaron will be a starting quarterback week 1 next year. Could be Tennessee, could be, I mentioned teams, could be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think will have interest. Now, will he work with Mike Tomlin? Remains to be seen. But Tomlin knows how to deal with big personalities. And Aaron certainly has a big personality. But I think this is the right move by the Jets. They need to do this. Aaron Glenn, the new head coach, go set your own path. Give yourself the best chance to be successful. For the Jets to be successful for the first time in a very long time. So I have all the time in the world for Aaron Glenn and him making these decisions and kind of telling the organization this is what we're going to do. I don't know if the Jets will get a rookie because there's not a rookie that's going to be good enough to start week 1, quite frankly. Do they go back in the Sam Darnold hunt? Do they take a flyer on Daniel Jones? Not a whole lot of great options, but there's some options that they can explore. Justin Fields in New York, Russell Wilson in New York. All potential landing spots for all potential quarterbacks for the New York Jets next season. Let's see here. All right, so I want to talk baseball. Pitchers and catchers have reported already, if you can believe it. I mean, things just happen. Like baseball, pitchers and catchers they just show up because the NFL season's over and the sports world doesn't stop for anybody. Alex Bregman, who was one of the hottest free agents on the market, has an agent by the name of Scott Boras. And Scott Boras is either awesome as an agent or god-awful as an agent. If you ask Jordan Montgomery or Matt Chapman or Cody Bellinger, he sucks because he promises his clients big long-term deals with big money, and he doesn't get them those long-term contracts with big money. Alex Bregman, you're 30 years old. You've won a World Series. Maybe you'll want to go back to the Houston Astros, but they don't really want you because they'll let players go. They let George Springer walk. They let Carlos Correa go to Minnesota. They traded Kyle Tucker to the Chicago Cubs. And now Alex Bregman is the latest of that team that won a World Series to depart, and he signed a 3-year, $120 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. And this deal, it's interesting because it's 3 years, $120, but there's also opt-outs after every season so that if Bregman has a great year, he can re-enter the market and try to make more money. He did not have a great season last year. Reportedly, he may play second base in Boston, but still undecided because you have Rafael Devers, who's not a great third baseman by any means. But the Red Sox, they traded Mookie Betts, and their fans hated them for some time because they didn't spend any money. And they just kind of punted on the next couple of seasons, although they did win a bunch of rings in there, so shut up, Red Sox fans. But this offseason, they've been active. They brought in Walker Buehler on a 1-year, $20 million deal with the Dodgers. Buehler, a multiple-time World Series champion. He has had Tommy John surgery twice, but still a very effective pitcher when he's on the mound. Bring in Aroldis Chapman back into that bullpen. They had Kenley Jansen last year. They get Aroldis Chapman. This year, another veteran, another guy who's won a World Series. Liam Hendricks, cancer survivor, former Jay, comes over. Their pitching, not bad. Patrick Sandoval has had good moments with the Angels. Tanner Houck, I like a lot. Giolito, Crochet, They got him from the White Sox, who was awesome last year. Their starting pitcher, and Bello is a good starting pitcher as well. And then you look, Rafael Devers, not a great third baseman, but he's a great bat, and he hits for power, hits for average, a lot of RBIs. Willie Abreu, Jarren Duran in center, who's awesome. Masaka Yoshida, Trevor Story, maybe he'll actually play a game this year for the Red Sox. That'd be nice. And now you're bringing Alex Bregman. It makes the AL East that much more competitive, and it's already a really competitive division. Doesn't help the Blue Jays, certainly. Although I think it's smart for them not to sign Bregman. I'm not paying a guy $40 million where he can opt out after 1 year and go somewhere else. But the Red Sox are okay with that. I think they're thinking he won't be going anywhere, which they're probably right. I don't know if he'll find a multi-year deal worth $30 to $40 million at 31, 32 years old. I think that's unlikely to happen. But if I'm Bregman, I'm mad at Scott Boras. I'm mad about this. Because you promised me all this stuff, but you didn't give me it. And yeah, I get to go play in the Green Monster and play in Boston and be thrilled about it and probably finish 4th in the division, just above the Rays. We'll have some fun. Good player. Curious to see how he does. If he plays nervous. If he plays like, I got so much I got to prove this year, which he does. He's a good baseball player. He'll be 31 March 30th. That's not he hit 260 last year, 26 homers, 75 RBIs. It's not a great year. It just isn't. 2023, 262, 98 RBIs, 163 hits. It's a better season. The Astros lose out on him. Like I said, they lost Kyle Tucker this offseason. They lose Bregman. Altuve's still there. They believe in their prospect pool, and they believe that they can pump out new stars. And obviously Verlander left for the Bay Area. And they got to hope that, they got pitchers that are good that are never healthy. Like Lance McCullers Jr., never healthy, but when he's on the mound, he's great. Maybe he can come back for it. It's an interesting year for the Houston Astros and where they go and how they view themselves in the American League West. Still better than the Angels. I'll tell you that. Still better than the Angels, who signed Kenley Jansen to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Kenley Jansen, 3rd or 4th all-time in saves in the history of Major League Baseball, which is impressive. Kenley Jansen, multiple-time World Series champion. Hell of a good career. Good career for Kenley Jansen. Also, Canadian Nick Pivetta signed a weird 4-year, $55 million deal with the Padres. I did not think he would get that much money, but he did. Good for him. Happy to see a Canadian get paid. But wasn't great for the Red Sox last year. Goes to the Padres. They have a massive payroll. They think they're the Dodgers, but they're not. Curious to see what happens there. Also, Clayton Kershaw signed a 1-year deal with the Dodgers to return for his 18th season. No real surprise. Has only played for the Dodgers. They're happy to bring him back. Like I said about Verlander or about Max Scherzer on the Blue Jays, he's a 4 or 5 starter. He's not an ace anymore. He's not going to throw many innings. Probably will have a couple stints on the injured list. but he's a veteran. They love him in that city. He can produce. I don't mind it. But in my personal record book, he still has no rings. That will never change. Couple things before we go. Torrey Pines, good PGA event this weekend. It's the Genesis, typically held at a Tigers course, but at Riviera. But because of the horrible fires in Los Angeles, that course is near the Pacific Palisades. So it had to be moved. It's now in Torrey Pines in San Diego. Horrible weather today. Winds, rain, still ongoing. Denny McCarthy shot 4 under. He's leading the tourney at an eagle on 18 to get to 4 under par. Seamus Power, Patrick Rogers, both were two of the first ones out this morning when the weather was at its best. They went 3 under, so they're at the top of the leaderboard. Scotty Scheffler still has 2 holes to play. He's 2 under through 16. Wyndham Clark, 2 under today. Jordan Spieth had a great event at the Waste Management. Kind of a comeback from him. He's 5 over today. Back to his old antics. Slamming the club, freaking out, doing his Jordan Spieth thing. Not to mention Full Swing Season 3 next week on Netflix. Curious to see what they do with that. Season 2 was good. I like Full Swing. I like what they do with golf. It's F1. The F1 is probably the best one, but I like Full Swing. A lot of good insight, up close look at success, things of that nature. The LIV PGA scandals that are still ongoing somehow. The fact that they haven't struck a deal yet is so perplexing and so crazy. But it's business people. Of course, they haven't figured out what they want to do yet. Saturday, we're going to do Sunday morning, we're going to do a podcast after the Canada game. And we'll give a golf update. We'll talk Sweden, Finland. On that day as well, it's the NBA All-Star game this weekend, which, bleh. Brandon Ingram signed an extension with the Raptors, 3 years, $120. No real surprise, but I will not be watching any of that All-Star game. I can tell you that right now because it's junk. All All-Star games. And that's what the Four Nations is better. But we got UFC this weekend at the Apex in Las Vegas. Not a great event, I will say. Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Robocop Rodriguez in the main event, middleweight, 5 rounds. Jared's lost a couple fights in a row, but he's a veteran, tough fighter. And he's been in some dogfights in that cage. He's 40 years old. Last year, lost to Kai Bohadio in a massive just brawl. Went 5-round decision. He lost a fight to Nasruddin Imavov as well, but that was a shitty stoppage. I do think he would have lost the fight. So you go back to 2023. He last beat Marvin Vettori in June of 2023. So it's been a minute since he's won a fight. Gregory Rodriguez, 2024, knocked out Brad Tavares, defeated Christian Leroy Duncan. He's on a streak where he's won 5 in a row. Gregory Rodriguez is a minus 235 favorite this weekend. If he can get you to the ground, he's really good there. He's strong. I think Jared's got a puncher's chance for sure because he's tough and he throws hard. I'm going to go with Gregory Rodriguez to pick up a huge win. It'll put him into the middleweight rankings for the first time in his career. He's 32. He said this is the biggest fight of his career. Jared Cannonier once fought Israel Adesanya for the middleweight championship. So huge opportunity for Gregory. I think he gets the win. Co-main event, Calvin Kattar against Yusuf Salal. Cater's been in there with some great featherweights. He fought Max Holloway. He's fought Alexander Volkanovski. He fought Aljamain Sterling back at UFC 300. Was a snoozer for him. It was his first fight in a year and a half. But again, almost a year outside the cage, he gets Yusuf Zalal. Zalal, a great story. Made the UFC, lost his first 3 fights, got cut. Then goes on the regional scene and starts picking up victories. Starts showing the UFC that I can hang here. Now 28, still young back. You look, March 2024, submits Billy Quarantillo. August 10th, he submits Jarno Aarons. And on November 2nd in Edmonton, he submitted Jack Shore, who then went on to retire. So 3 straight wins in the UFC since returning. He now gets Calvin Kattar, a tough veteran, and yet he's a minus 430 favorite. 3 straight submissions. I think he makes it 4 straight submissions. I would take him money line to win the fight, but also I'm taking him to win the fight via submission, 4 straight subs. This dude's legit. He's back. He looks great. Yusuf Zalal. You have the Bonfim brothers. Interesting parlay of Ismail Bonfim, who's a lightweight, 155. He's fighting Nassim Sadikov. He's a slight favorite, minus 240. Sadikov's only lost once in his career. I like the Bonfims both at minus 240. Gabriel minus 245 against Chaos Williams. I think they both win. So if you go parlay, both the Bonfims, Zalal via submission, Gregory Rodriguez to defeat Jared Kenny. I think that's a winning parlay for you at UFC Vegas this weekend at the Apex. We will be back on Sunday morning to recap the hockey from this weekend at the Four Nations and everything else that transpires in the world of sports. Until then, take care. Have a great couple of days. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.